Okay, man. Uh, this is unofficially a Valorant month. We had Sean earlier in the month, and we spent another last week kind of talking about performance. But this week, I'm actually very looking forward to it because we have you. One of the biggest thing with environment art, and at least any type of 3D concept creation, is starts with the concept department. And I think what's great is that having you here is kind of highlight a lot of that side of how actually an environment gets started. But before that, do you mind kind of introducing yourself, like a brief background of where you're from and where you're heading, all that beautiful background information?
I started doing concept back in 2003. First game company was at Insomniac. But before that, I went to school at Art Center, studied illustration. I started in 1999 and then graduated in 2002. Prior to that, I was actually in a totally different field. I was in science field, namely biology. And I've worked there in that field for 2 years as a biotech researcher. At that time we were working on on cloning, or at least sequencing, the human genome project. I don't know if you guys heard that. It's way back, but that was in the very beginning of that project. So I worked in it for 2 years, and something didn't feel right. I felt that games was something that I wanted to do, so that's why I attended Art Center. So after Art Center, I went there for about 4 years, and landed a job at Insomniac. Worked there for about 5.5 years, and that was my first game company. So I really wanted to stretch my wings, and I went into animation, concept for that. Did concept art for that, which was a very different experience. And then after that, went back into games again. Worked at Naughty Dog for Uncharted 2. After that project, went back, got another opportunity at animation at Disney Image Movers with Doug Chang. He was running a department over there, working for a Disney project. At the time, it was the Yellow Submarine. They got canceled, and unfortunately, the studio also shut down. So went back into games. Came back down to LA. Worked at Spark Unlimited on Lost Planet 3, and that's where I met Brandon. And worked there for about 3.5 years after the project, and then went into Amazon Game Studios, where they were just starting a game division. So that was pretty exciting. Was there about for 4 years. Worked on various projects. The most recent project on Amazon was Breakaway, but unfortunately that got canceled. So so Section was a art outsource studio. So that was a service company, and I was a visual development director there. So I had a team of 10 people, 10 artists under me, and we served different clients for different projects. For example, like Riot was one of our clients, so we did concepts for them. Whatever request they had, we did for that. Treyarch did a lot of the Call of Duty Black Ops concepts. So it was a good variety, and it was a very different. It's a very different workflow than what I was used to, because I was on the client side for most of my career, and then now I'm on the server side. So that was a really good experience. And after that, that studio unfortunately had to close down about a year and a half later. So that's when I joined Riot, which is where I'm at currently, and I worked on Valorant. So that's kind of the gist of my career.
So I think this is where a perfect time to actually pull up some of your ArtStation work on Valorant, and we can kind of go through the thinking process for each piece. So when we talked to Sean, and especially this month talking about Valorant, what I loved about Valorant is that it actually leveraged a lot of game development cheating to still look good and run really well on 10-year-old computers. And a lot of that has to do with good planning on both the 2D and 3D content pipeline, but especially on the 2D, because obviously level designers, I don't know how much experience you've had with level designers or working with level designers, but level designers always liked flat walls and flat floors. They don't like anything organic. They like perpendicular lines and nothing, and at most maybe 45-degree angles.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of work to make that look good. Not saying impossible, but it's difficult. But people or projects like Valorant that does it well, Counter-Strike is another example, or most multiplayer games, to be honest, that do really well, have that very flat look, but putting the details in the right places. So how much, I think once you pull up some of the screenshot, we can look at that as an example. How much was that at the pre-production for you and the team to kind of decide early on, like, hey, we're obviously limited on details, but how can we make that look interesting into a style?
Well, first off, we were very intentional on designing the spaces. So, for example, if you notice Valorant, a lot of the detail at player height is minimized, and we tend not to have too much detail in the sight of where the player is going to shoot. If you look at the walls, for example, in the screenshots, it's pretty plain, but it has some detail to kind of grab interest. And the reason we do that is because when our player stands in front of the wall, they're going to pop out pretty obviously, right? And that's a lot of the designs that we do are very player focused. We always think of the player first on what they're experiencing, and also giving that clarity to the player, so that if Valorant becomes competitive, that's really important as well. So we keep the line of sight and player as a player point of view pretty simple and clean, very graphic. But also that's due to the engine limitations and the frame rate. We want to keep the frame rate down, so that's the direction that we want to choose as well. But all the details that you see is up on top of the gameplay space. If you look at Ascent, right? That's the Venice level. So a lot of the details or the filigree of the buildings are up on top, where the bottom part it's pretty clean for the most part, right? Like we'll have some textural detail on there, but it's not a lot to distract the player to what they're from their objectives. Am I showing the ArtStation, or are you showing the ArtStation? Sorry.
Why don't you go ahead and show it so that's better for us to follow along? But in the meantime, what I can do is I can pull up Ascent, and so people have some ideas. What are you talking about?
Okay,
But
let me
yeah, at
know when
any
you're ready
point,
to
go ahead and start sharing. There's a lot of levels name name Ascent.
Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay. So just to give a little disclaimer, when I first came in, the game was already in pretty good progress. So the stuff that I posted is only the stuff I can really show, which is mostly on Split. That's the Neo Tokyo and Old Tokyo level, and I did some stuff on Ascent as well, but not a whole lot. I mean, I did a lot of paintovers, but in terms of showing more exciting stuff, there wasn't really much exciting stuff as Split. Because Split was something that I helped start ground up for, at least for the Kingdom side.
Okay.
So let me show you this here. So this is Split. And this is the attacker spawn. This is where the attackers spawn from their side. And this one showcases the plaza of what the Kingdom environment is. And Kingdom is really like this, big corporation. If you think of it like Apple or Amazon, there is this very clean architecture. This is kind of more the front-facing architecture that Kingdom has. It's kind of like, it's a very consumer-heavy feel, like kind of like what you see today at the Apple stores. Very minimalistic, very modern. So this was a paint over of that level because we wanted to see how it would look like, just to sell the idea of what this Kingdom Corporation looks like. And this is another paint over as well. This is one of the earlier paint overs. So we wanted to have, kind of showcase like some sort of garden or plaza. And that's a train station here.